Maria wiped the sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. The small diner smelled like burnt toast and old coffee. The neon sign outside flickered every few seconds, just like her hope. She had been working double shifts for months now, saving every penny to pay for her little brother's medicine. Maria was 24, but looked older. Her eyes carried heavy shadows from sleepless nights, and her hands had small burns from hot plates and boiling water. She served coffee to strangers all day, pretending she didn't hear their rude comments or see the way they sometimes laughed at her. Second-hand shoes. That evening, a man walked in, wearing a black beanie and simple clothes. He sat at the counter. Quietly, Maria didn't recognize him at first. To her, he was just another tired face who wanted a hot meal. She grabbed her notepad and walked over, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "What can I get you?" she asked softly. The man looked up, and Maria froze. She knew that face. Everyone knew that face. It was Keanu Reeves. She blinked twice, worried she was imagining things, but it was really him, sitting in her diner like any regular customer. Keanu gave her a gentle smile, the kind that made her feel like maybe the world wasn't so bad after all. "Just a coffee and your special, please," he said. Maria scribbled it down, her hands trembling. She turned around quickly, not wanting him to see her eyes filling with tears. She wasn't crying because he was famous. She was crying because, for a moment, she felt seen. She felt human. In the kitchen, she told the cook in a whisper. The old cook, Frank, chuckled. "If you spill that coffee on him, kid, you'll be famous too." Maria managed a weak laugh. She poured the coffee, careful not to spill a drop. She placed the plate in front of him, her heart beating so loud she wondered if he could hear it. "Thank you," Keanu said, looking her in the eyes. "What's your name, Maria?" she replied, almost in a whisper. "Maria, thank you for your kindness." She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded and stepped back. She watched him from the counter as he ate slowly, like he had nowhere to be. He spoke to no one else. Sometimes he looked around the diner, taking it all in. It was a small, broken place with peeling paint and cheap chairs, but he looked at it like it was special. When he finished, he stood up and walked to the register. Maria wiped her hands nervously on her apron. She didn't want to look greedy, but her mind wondered. Would he tip big? She could use a big tip. Just $50 would buy her brother's antibiotics. Keanu pulled out a few bills and handed them to her. She glanced at the receipt. The meal was $20. He had left 21. Maria felt her heart sink. $1, a single dollar. She forced a polite smile, though inside she felt like crying. Maybe he thought she didn't deserve more. Maybe she wasn't as kind as he had said. "Thank you," she said, her voice tight. Keanu leaned closer, his eyes kind but his voice serious. "Thank you, Maria. Take care." He left without another word. Maria stood behind the counter, staring at the dollar bill. She felt foolish for hoping. She felt stupid for dreaming that someone like him would make her life better. She tucked the dollar into her apron pocket, promising herself she wouldn't cry at work. But when she turned around, Frank was staring at her with wide eyes. "What did he say to you?" Frank asked. "Nothing. He thanked me," Maria said. Frank's eyes narrowed. "Did you check under the plate?" Maria frowned. She hurried back to the counter where Keanu had been sitting. She lifted the plate. Under it was a small folded napkin. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were two words, written in neat handwriting. "Trust me." Maria's breath caught in her throat. Trust me? Trust him for what? It was just $1. There was no note, no contact, nothing else. For the rest of her shift, she replayed his words in her head. Trust me. She felt like a fool for hoping it meant something. But deep down, a tiny seed of hope began to grow again. Maybe, just maybe, that $1 would change everything. Outside, a black car waited for Keanu. His driver looked at him through the rearview mirror. "Did she get it, sir?" the driver asked. Keanu looked out the window at the flickering diner sign, his face calm, but his eyes thoughtful. "She did," he said. "Now, let's see if she trusts." Inside that broken diner, Maria's life was about to twist in ways she could never imagine. That $1 so small and so easy to overlook, would open doors she didn't even know existed. But for now, she stood behind the counter, clutching the napkin in her hand, trying to believe that something good was waiting for her, something worth trusting in. Maria barely slept that night. She lay on her small bed in the tiny apartment she shared with her brother, Miguel. The ceiling paint was peeling, and the street light outside flickered just like the diner sign. In her hand, she held the napkin with those two words, "Trust me." Miguel, only 10 years old, lay beside her, breathing heavily. The doctors had said his lungs were weak since birth, and any infection could get worse quickly. Maria had been saving for his medicine, counting every coin and every dollar tip. But now, instead of feeling comfort, that single dollar from Keanu made her feel confused. Was it a joke? Did she imagine it all? The next morning, Maria tied her hair back and got ready for another double shift. She tucked the napkin into her pocket, not knowing why she couldn't throw it away. Maybe it gave her hope, or maybe she was just afraid of letting go of a silly dream. At the diner, Frank was already frying bacon when she arrived. He gave her a curious look. "Any big tip show up under your pillow?" Maria smiled weakly. "No magic money yet, Frank." The hours dragged by. She served eggs to the same old men who left nickels on the table. She poured coffee for women who barely looked her in the eye. All day, she watched the door, half hoping Keanu would come back, half hoping he wouldn't, because she didn't want to feel that ache of disappointment again. It was almost closing time when she noticed something strange. A man in a suit, not regular diner clothes, sat at the same spot Keanu had. He was older, with silver hair and sharp eyes. He didn't order anything, just sat there, looking at his phone. Maria hesitated before walking over. "Can I get you anything, sir?" The man looked up, and she felt like he was staring through her. Then he smiled. "Coffee, please." She poured him a cup, her hands steady this time. She tried not to look curious, but he kept glancing at her, like he was waiting for something. After a while, he called her over. "You're Maria, right?" Her heart jumped. "Yes, sir." He pulled out an envelope from his inside pocket and placed it on the counter. "Mr. Reeves asked me to give you this." Maria stared at it like it might bite her. "What is it?" "Instructions," the man said simply, "and a chance." He stood up, leaving the coffee half full. "Good luck, Maria." She picked up the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It had an address, a time, tomorrow, 9 in the morning, and below it, for words, "Bring your brother, Miguel." She read it again and again. Bring your brother. Where? Why? Was it safe? What if it was some trick? Fear curled in her chest, but then she felt the napkin in her pocket. Trust me. That night, she packed Miguel's school bag with his favorite toy car and his medicine. He looked at her with sleepy eyes. "Where are we going, Maria?" She brushed his hair back and kissed his forehead. "Somewhere special, mi amor. We're going to trust someone." Maria barely slept. She kept staring at the paper, trying to calm the storms in her mind. She thought about her mother, who used to say sometimes you have to take a step before you see the whole road. Maybe this was her step. When dawn came, she dressed Miguel in his warmest jacket and held his small hand tight as they waited for the bus. The city was just waking up, cold and gray, but Maria felt something warm inside, a tiny ember of hope that refused to die. They got off near a tall building that looked out of place in her world. Clean glass windows, shiny floors. The security guard at the door looked at her, then at the paper she held out. "Mr. Reeves is waiting for you upstairs," he said kindly. Maria's knees felt weak as she led Miguel inside. They rode the elevator in silence. Miguel squeezed her hand. "Is it scary up there?" "No, baby," she said, even though her heart thundered in her chest. "It's going to be okay." When the doors opened, they stepped into a bright office with big windows that showed the whole city. And there, standing by the glass, was Keanu Reeves. He turned around and smiled at Maria, the same gentle smile that made her feel human the first time. "Hi, Maria," he said. "Hi, Miguel." Miguel hid behind Maria's leg, peeking out at the famous man who felt like a dream. Maria tried to find her voice. Why are we here?" Keanu walked over and knelt down so he was eye level with Miguel. "Because I believe in your sister, Miguel, and I believe she deserves a chance." Maria felt her eyes burn with tears. "But the dollar, the note." Keanu stood up and looked right at her. "Sometimes the smallest things test how much faith we have left, Maria. And you passed. You trusted." He motioned for her to look behind him. Maria turned and saw a woman standing near a table with papers. The woman smiled warmly. "Maria, we'd like to help you in Miguel, but it will only work if you're ready." Maria's voice shook. "Help us how?" Keanu placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. $1 isn't worth much, but your trust, your hope, that's priceless. Now let's change your life." Maria held Miguel's hand tighter, her heart pounding. She didn't know what the next words would be. She only knew this was the moment everything could change, if she dared to keep trusting. Maria felt her knees tremble as she stood in that bright office with Keanu and the kind-looking woman. The smell of fresh coffee and clean floors was so different from the greasy diner she knew. She clutched Miguel's hand tighter, afraid that if she blinked, this moment would vanish. The woman stepped forward and handed Maria a folder. "My name is Ellen. I work with Mr. Reeves. He asked me to show you what this is about." Maria opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were papers she didn't understand, words she'd never seen mixed with numbers that made her dizzy. But one thing stood out, a picture of a small house with a garden and a blue door. "What is this?" Maria whispered. Keanu spoke gently. "It's yours, Maria, if you want it." Maria felt the room spin. "Mine, a house?" Ellen nodded. "It's a small place, but it's safe, close to a good school for Miguel, and near a clinic where he can get treatment for free. Mr. Reeves has set up a trust to pay for Miguel's medical needs. No more choosing between rent and medicine." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "But why me? You don't even know me." Keanu's eyes softened. "Maria, you remind me of my mother. She worked 2 jobs, did everything she could to keep me safe and warm. People like you deserve more help than you get. I wanted to see if you'd trust someone who asked nothing in return." Maria's legs gave out, and she sank into a chair. Miguel climbed onto her lap, hugging her tightly. "Is this our new house, Maria?" he asked, his eyes wide with hope. She kissed his forehead, tears dripping onto his hair. "Maybe. Maybe it is." Ellen spoke again, calm but serious. "There's one condition, Maria. You have to come work with us." Double quotes. Maria looked up, confused. "Work? Doing what?" Keanu smiled. "Running a new cafe we're opening. It's in a nicer neighborhood. You'll be manager, with a good salary, regular hours, and full health insurance. You're good at what you do. You make people feel welcome. That's more valuable than you know." Maria felt her heart twist. "But I don't know how to run a cafe." Keanu laughed softly. "You'll learn. You've been doing it already. Managing customers, balancing chaos, being kind. You have everything you need, Maria. I'll make sure you're trained and supported." Maria held Miguel closer, his small fingers tracing the picture of the blue door. For years, she'd dreamed of a safe home, but dreams were for people with money, not for a girl with second-hand shoes and empty pockets. And yet, here she was, in a glass tower, offered more than she ever dared to wish for. "What if I fail?" she asked, her voice breaking. Keanu leaned closer. "Then we try again. Failure is not the end, Maria. Giving up is. You didn't give up when I left you $1. You won't give up now." Maria closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his words settle in her chest. She felt something she hadn't felt in years, the heavy weight on her shoulders starting to lift. "Just a little." Ellen handed her another paper. "We'd like you to visit the house today. See if you feel at home. There's no rush to decide." Maria nodded, speechless. She stood up, still holding Miguel. Keanu placed a gentle hand on Miguel's head. "You're strong, kid," he said softly. "You've got the best sister in the world." Miguel giggled, hiding his face in Maria's shoulder. On the ride to the house, Maria looked out the window at the city passing by. The streets were the same, people rushing to work, cars honking, neon signs blinking. But the world felt different. She had hope now, wrapped up in a folder on her lap. The car pulled up in front of the little blue door she'd seen in the Picture, the house was small but neat, with a tiny garden that looked like it could bloom with flowers in spring. Maria stepped out of the car, her legs shaky, and walked up the steps. She turned the key Ellen had given her and pushed the door. Open. Inside was simple: a couch, a small kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and sunshine streaming through clean windows. No peeling paint, no leaking pipes, no shouting neighbors through thin walls. Miguel ran from room to room, his laughter echoing. "This is our house, Maria. I want the bed near the window." Maria sat down on the couch, burying her face in her hands. For the first time in a long time, she let herself cry, not from fear or worry, but from a strange, unfamiliar feeling, relief. She remembered the dollar in her apron pocket. She would keep it forever, a reminder that sometimes trust is worth more than gold. Outside, Keanu's car waited. He watched through the window, a small smile on his lips. He knew Maria's journey wasn't over, it was just beginning. But he believed in her, and he knew she'd keep believing in herself. And somewhere in that tiny house with the blue door, Maria felt that maybe, just maybe, she was strong enough to build a new life, $1 of trust at a time. Maria woke up the next morning in the small blue house, not to the sound of leaking pipes or neighbors fighting, but to birds singing outside her window. For a few seconds, she thought it was all a dream. Then she felt Miguel's warm breath against her arm. He was curled up beside her, hugging his toy car tight. Maria slipped out of bed and walked through the tiny hallway. Sunlight poured into the kitchen, making the old coffee cup from her diner days feel like a memory from another life. She brewed coffee, breathing in the warmth. She couldn't help but smile, real smiles this time, not the ones she forced behind the counter. A knock on the door made her jump. She opened it to find Ellen standing there, holding a folder and a bag of fresh bread. "Good morning, Maria," Ellen said with a kind smile. "How did your first night here feel?" Maria laughed softly, hugging herself, "like I was sleeping in someone else's dream." Ellen placed the bread on the kitchen table. "Well, this dream is yours now. But we have some things to do today, if you're ready." Maria felt a flicker of fear again. "What things?" Ellen pulled out a paper from the folder. "We need to get you signed up for your new job. Some paperwork, a tour of the cafe, meet the team. Nothing too scary." Maria chewed her lip. "But I don't know if I can do this. What if I mess up?" Ellen reached across the table, touching Maria's hand. "Maria, no one expects you to be perfect. They just expect you to try. And trust me, you've already done the hardest part." Maria nodded, squeezing Ellen's hand back. "Okay, I'll try." Miguel woke up a few minutes later. Rubbing his eyes, he saw the bread and let out a tiny cheer. "Maria, they have real bread here, not just old toast." Ellen laughed. "I think you're going to like it here, Miguel, after breakfast." Maria dressed Miguel in his warm jacket and held his hand as they walked to the car waiting outside. It wasn't a fancy black car this time, just a small van, driven by a young man named Liam, who greeted Maria like they were old friends. "You ready, boss?" Liam teased as he opened the door for her. Maria blushed. "I'm not a boss," Liam grinned. "You're the new manager, aren't you? That makes you my boss." Maria sat in the back seat, holding Miguel's hand, staring out the window. The city looked different again, not cold and gray, but full of chances she hadn't seen before. The cafe was beautiful. Maria felt her breath catch when she stepped inside. Warm lights, wooden tables, fresh flowers on each table, nothing like the greasy diner she had spent years in. There was a small chalkboard by the door that read, "Welcome, Maria." A group of people stood behind the counter, all smiling. Maria recognized a few from when she met Keanu in the office. There was Grace, who would help her with the books, and Amir, the head chef, who looked at Miguel and handed him a cookie without a word. Liam clapped his hands. "Everyone, meet Maria, our new cafe manager. And this is Miguel, our official cookie tester." Everyone laughed, and Maria felt her fear melt just a little. Grace pulled her aside and handed her a binder. "We'll train you step by step, Maria. You don't have to figure it out alone." Maria looked at the shiny espresso machine, the fresh pastries in the glass case, the clean floor that didn't smell like burnt toast. She remembered how customers used to yell at her for cold coffee, how tips were barely enough for bread, And now, people were smiling at her, trusting her to lead. It felt heavy, but not in the way that broke her, in the way that made her stand taller. Through the window, she saw a black car pull up. Her heart skipped. Keanu stepped out, wearing the same simple clothes and that same soft smile. He walked in, and the whole cafe seemed to get brighter. He walked straight to Maria, ignoring the staff who tried not to stare. "So what do you think?" Maria's eyes watered. "It's beautiful." Keanu looked around, nodding. "It's a place where people will feel welcome. People like you used to be, tired, hungry, needing kindness. You know how to give that, Maria." Miguel ran over, holding his half-eaten cookie. "Mr. Reeves, they have cookies." Keanu laughed, kneeling to Miguel's level. "And they'll always have cookies for you, buddy." Then he stood up, looking at Maria. "Remember, this is yours now, not just the cafe, your life. You're allowed to be happy." Maria felt something break open inside her, years of fear and hopelessness melting away. She didn't know if she would be perfect, but she knew she would try. Because sometimes $1 can change everything, if you're brave enough to trust it. She wiped her eyes, smiling at Keanu. "Thank you," she whispered. Keanu just smiled back. "Thank yourself, Maria. You did the hard part. You didn't give up." Outside, the city buzzed on like always, but inside that warm cafe, a new chapter was just beginning, one where Maria was more than a waitress scraping by. She was a manager, a sister, and a woman who finally believed she deserved a chance. The first few weeks at the new cafe were not easy for Maria. Every morning, she woke up before sunrise, made Miguel's breakfast, helped him get ready for school, and walked him to the bus stop near their blue door. Then she hurried to the cafe, where the smell of fresh coffee and pastries greeted her, like a warm hug. But the fear still followed her, that maybe she wasn't good enough, that maybe she would fail and lose everything. Sometimes, when she stood behind the counter, she still felt like the tired waitress in the old diner, waiting for rude customers and tiny tips. But every time those thoughts crept in, she remembered Keanu's voice. "Trust me, Grace and Amir were patient. They showed Maria how to order supplies, balance the books, and handle complaints with calm. Liam taught her how to fix the coffee machine when it hissed and steamed. The whole team called her boss in a way that made her feel strong, not scared." One night, Maria stayed late to count the register. The cafe was empty, the chairs stacked, the lights dimmed. She looked at the dollar bill she kept taped inside. The cash drawer, the same dollar Keanu left her. She touched it, feeling its paper edges, reminding herself that hope could come from the smallest thing. Miguel was doing better too. The clinic near their new house made sure he had his medicine on time. He came home every day with stories about his new friends and his favorite teacher. Sometimes he drew pictures of the cafe with Maria behind the counter and wrote "My sister is the boss" in big letters. But even with this new life, Maria felt something heavy in her heart. She worried she hadn't done enough to deserve all this. She worried one mistake would take it all away. Then one Friday, something unexpected happened. The cafe was busy, filled with students, office workers, and families. Maria was at the register when a man in a suit came in. He looked out of place, too stiff, too polished. He walked up to Maria and ordered a black coffee. When she handed him his change, he leaned closer. "You're Maria, aren't you?" His voice was low but sharp. Maria froze. "Yes, do I know you?" The man's eyes narrowed. "You're the girl Mr. Reeves gave everything to." His words felt like ice on her skin. "Sorry, sir, I don't understand." He laughed, but it was a cold laugh. "Enjoy it while you can. People like you don't belong in places like this. Sooner or later, you'll slip. And when you do, this place will belong to someone else." Before Maria could speak, he dropped a dollar bill on the counter, exactly like Keanu had, and walked out, the doorbell chimming behind him. Her hands shook as she stared at the dollar. A wave of fear and shame washed over her. What if he was right? What if she really didn't belong here? She grabbed the bill, wanting to throw it away, but something inside her made her put it in her pocket instead. Later that night, when the cafe was empty again, Maria sat at a corner table, staring at both dollar bills, the old one from Keanu and the new one from the angry man. One meant trust. The other felt like poison. She didn't notice Keanu walk in until he sat down across from her, his warm eyes studying her face. "Long day?" he asked softly. Maria didn't answer right away. Then she showed him the second dollar bill. "Someone came today," he said. "I don't belong here." Keanu took the bill, turning it between his fingers. "And do you believe him?" Maria's eyes filled with tears. "What if he's right? What if I mess this up and lose everything?" Keanu leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "Maria, that man gave you $1 full of fear. I gave you one full of trust. Which one feels right in your heart?" Maria looked down, her fingers trembling. "Yours." Keanu nodded. "Then keep this one," he said, tapping her heart. "People will always try to make you feel small, but you decide which words you carry." He stood up to leave, but then he paused and looked back at her. "Do you know why I trusted you with this cafe, Maria?" She shook her head, wiping her eyes. "Because when I left you that $1 tip, you didn't get angry. You didn't give up. You went back to work. You kept going. That's the kind of strength no money can buy." Maria felt her heart lift. Piece by piece, she understood. Then that the old fear would never fully go away. But she could choose which voice to listen to, the one that told her she was not enough, or the one that whispered, "Trust me." When she got home, Miguel was waiting at the window, waving. Maria hugged him so tight he giggled. "Are you okay?" "Maria," Miguel asked, peeking up at her. She kissed his forehead and smiled. "For real?" "Yes, mi amor. I'm okay. I'm more than okay." Outside, the city lights blinked like tiny stars. And inside, Maria felt something stronger than fear, the steady glow of hope she had built. $1 at a time, asterisk weeks turned into months, and the cafe became more than just a place to drink coffee. It became a place where people felt safe. Maria made sure of it. She learned every name, remembered every story, and taught her team to treat every customer like family. Some days were hard. There were mornings when deliveries were late, customers were rude, or the oven stopped working. On those days, Maria would slip into the back office and touch the old dollar bill she had framed on the wall. It reminded her that trust could grow in places where hope once felt dead. One evening, Maria was closing up when she found a young woman crying outside the cafe. She wore a diner uniform, her apron stained with coffee. Maria saw herself in her. The tired eyes, the shaking hands. Maria opened the door. "Come inside. You look like you need something warm." The young woman sat at a corner table while Maria made her a cup of tea. They talked quietly. The woman's name was Rosa. She was new in town, working double shifts to pay for her mother's surgery. Maria listened, nodding, feeling her heart ache at how familiar it all sounded. When Rosa asked for the bill, Maria smiled and placed a single dollar on the table instead. "What's this?" Rosa asked, confused. "It's a reminder," Maria said softly, "that sometimes you have to trust that good things can find you when you least expect it." Rosa looked at her, tears filling her eyes. "But I don't understand." Maria took Rosa's hand and squeezed it. "You will, just don't give up." Later that night, Maria walked back to her blue house under a sky full of stars. Miguel was waiting at the window, waving as always. Inside, their tiny living room was filled with drawings he had made, pictures of the cafe, the garden, and Maria wearing a crown with the word boss written in wobbly letters. As she tucked Miguel into bed, he asked her, "Maria, are we rich now?" Maria laughed, brushing his hair back. "No, mi amor, we're not rich, but we have enough, and enough is beautiful." Miguel closed his eyes, holding his toy car. Drifting off to sleep, Maria sat by his side for a long time, thinking about the journey that started with one small, forgotten dollar. A few days later, Keanu visited the cafe again. He sat at the counter. Just like the first time, Maria brought him his coffee. No notepad needed now. "So," Keanu asked, sipping his drink, "how does it feel to be the boss?" Maria laughed. "It feels like learning to breathe again." Keanu leaned back, his eyes kind. "And the fear?" Maria looked out the window, watching the busy street. "It's still there, but it doesn't own me anymore." Keanu nodded, satisfied. He placed a single-dollar bill on the counter, smiling as Maria picked it up. She slipped it into her apron pocket, where the first one had once stayed. "What will you do next?" Keanu asked. Maria smiled at him, a new kind of strength in her eyes. "I'll do for others what you did for me. I'll remind them that trust is worth more than gold." The cafe's doorbell chimed as new customers walked in, tired students, office workers, people with stories written on their faces. Maria greeted them all with warmth, just like she had always wanted someone to greet her. And when she locked up that night, she didn't feel alone. She knew she had built something good, something that would grow beyond her hands. Sometimes, Maria still wondered why Keanu chose her that day. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was just a reminder that one small act of kindness, wrapped in trust, can change a life forever. And so, in a city that once made her feel invisible, Maria stood tall, not because she was perfect, but because she was brave enough to believe in one simple thing: trust me.